out to the people within the quarterback mechanics. I was just needed to get the link, I realized, and I didn't end up getting the link, and so I didn't get it out. But hopefully we're able to get some people on here to check out the quarterback mechanics here. If not, we'll just go right into it. I'm going to be going over how to throw further. I got somebody that reached out that was interested in that. Sorry, I've just been going from one thing to the next. I needed a quick little water break there. We'll give a little bit of time for some people to potentially come in, or else, maybe I'll just be doing this live on my own. It's my own fault because I didn't go in and reach out to enough people, but or didn't send any emails, so no one really knows what's going on. But the idea here is, we want to be able to help you guys out in improving the ability to throw further, right? I think we see a lot of guys that are struggling with this, right? It's that time of the year right now where we're trying to work on, throwing distance, right? Kind of work on the mechanics, get a little bit better with the mechanics. And so, being able to really isolate some of the things that I think end up being most important when it comes to improving the throwing distance is what we're going to be talking about today. We'll be going over some of the common mistakes, some of the common errors, as well as what is, really the main focus, right? What is it that we really need to be able to do to maximize the throw? If you're in here, you're watching it, you're liking the information, as always, click that thumbs up, subscribe, all that type of good stuff. Leave some comments if you can. If you have any questions or anything like that, would be happy to be able to answer those. And we're going to go ahead and get right into it. So, we got Patrick Mahomes here to start. And, the big thing when it comes to, and I just recently made a video about this where, we really need to be able to work much more on the rotation within the hips, right? And being able to, what's up, Jacob? How's it going? Thanks for reaching out on Facebook here. We got somebody on Facebook. I just started using Restream, which makes it so I can go live on more platforms. So, happy to be able to get more people from different areas. Thanks for the comment there, Jacob. If you have any questions, let me know. But yeah, so the big thing that stands is when we go and initiate the action, right, and being able to throw the ball further, where a lot of people end up, I think, having mistakes is, one, not keeping that weight back on the back leg, right? I want to say that's probably the biggest mistake where we see, people go and immediately shift all of their weight forward when they're going to be able to throw the ball far. I having some. What's going on here? Hello. Okay, at least that works. Okay, but what we want to be able to do, I want to be able to get some arrows here, but there we go. That was it for a second. Okay. But what I do, right, when it comes to being able to correct this, and what I teach is we should be pushing down as much as we can into the ground when we're loading with this back foot, right? So the more we can almost create like this, you can see with him as he's loading with Mahomes here, he's bending into that back leg, right? He's sitting down and almost kind of getting that front shoulder to come up, right? So as that front shoulder comes up, that also means that the hand and the back shoulder has to be going down, right? We can't be lifting both shoulders, up simultaneously, in a movement pattern, right? You have to either have one hip kind of going up, one hip going down when it comes to this loading. So, here we're loading, okay, getting that front hip up, again, keeping that weight back. But just because we're keeping that weight back doesn't mean we want to be limiting our ability to create rotation within that lower body, right? And so he's very good and very quick at being able to hit with that front foot and then immediately start opening up with that, or start with the front foot and then immediately start opening up with that front hip, okay? And that's critical. Again, so when your front foot hits, right, we want to immediately start opening up with that front, okay? And even though we're doing that, we don't want all of our weight to be shifting forward. We can see he still has a lot of weight back, okay? So the idea is keep your weight back as much as you can. A lot of people, I just made a video about this. A lot of people talk about how, you need to keep your hips going and the importance of, the weight shift and he stops the hip. So he doesn't have good, not using his body correctly because he's stopping the hips, blah, blah, blah. But we see Mahomes here. We see, I did the video mostly talking about Jalen Hurts, and he does not keep his hips going, right? Like, look at him. He's not keeping his hips going right here, right? But what he is doing from this view, right? He's not keeping his hips going. But what he is doing is he's continuing to rotate with his hips. So it's not about frontal plane action, okay, which is like a lateral shift type of a thing. It's about rotational action, which is the transverse plane. The transverse plane is the most powerful plane. Okay, you can look that up and and look more into it if you don't know much about the transverse plane and you're wanting to learn more about quarterback mechanics, how you can improve quarterback mechanics, things like that. Then you definitely look more into the transverse plane and how we can develop the transverse plane, right? Medicine ball throws, different types of jumps, rotational jumps, utilizing different types of rotational core type exercises, right? But you've got to be able to develop that transverse plane, because that core, right? So essentially what it does is it connects this throwing shoulder, regardless of which hand you're throwing to, but it connects this throwing shoulder with that front hip. Okay, and the better of a connection we have there, the more velocity you're going to be able to create. So what happens is people get too stuck in the frontal plane, which means that they're just shifting forward and back and are limited with the transverse plane and the ability to rotate, right? Because when you start to get too much caught up in the frontal plane, right, just moving side to side, what that does is that limits your ability to fully rotate here. Okay, so what we're talking about, I know there's new people coming in. If the people that are coming in, if you guys like the information, like the video, subscribe, all that type of good stuff. I'm sure a lot of you guys are already subscribed here, but we're talking about how to throw the ball further and the importance of utilizing the rotation within the hip. So it's not about moving forward. It's about how well can we rotate within that lower body, okay, in order to be able to maximize throwing distance. So again, we see Mahomes here. He's, I always tell guys, like, push back down with that front foot or with that back foot. Push down that back foot. Keep more of the weight on the back foot as much as you can. And so what we see is as he's landing, now he's rotating. He's not shifting his hips forward. He's rotating with his hips and using that rotation to generate speed through the thoracic spine. Okay, that's another thing that, as I've continued to learn and study this and see more of, one of the things that stood out to me is when guys were throwing and had a lot of velocity on their throws, it seemed like they were able to generate a lot of speed in their arm, right? That was like almost in my mind, what we wanted to be able to teach. Okay, how can I get more speed in the arm? How to make it so I can improve my just arm speed in general. Okay, it's similar to when we're sprinting. Okay, when we're sprinting, it's leg cycle, right? How fast can we cycle the legs? Okay, but it actually ends up being how fast can we rotate in the spine? Okay, because the arm, a lot of times, what they did is they looked at pitchers and they saw that a lot of time the arm speed of pitchers is the same or maybe even slower at the professional level than at the college and high school level, right? So it's not about arm speed as much as it is about the rotation of the spine. It's about spine rotation. How well can we rotate? How fast can we get this spine to rotate? Now, obviously when we're rotating here, we don't want to let that arm get stuck way back, behind. You don't want to be slow with the arm, but the more and the sooner and the faster we could rotate within the spine, the better we are going to be when it comes to throwing distance, throwing velocity, all the things that follow from there. Okay. And then even like the release, right? A lot of times people get caught up in the release where everyone wants to be like, oh yeah, his release, you should be, getting your hand should come to the non-throwing pocket. Right, so if he's a right-hander, he should be throwing it to, or his hand should come through to the left hip. Okay, we see a lot of these throws here where he's definitely not doing that. Here's an example where, again, and I think what this does, okay, is it helps you in being able to sit into that front hip a little better. Because what we see is, and what this will correct is people that end up stepping and really locking out that front foot. People, again, if you guys are watching this and you have questions based off what we're seeing, or would like me to get more in depth into something, let me know. But what we see is people that have an issue with locking out that front foot, a lot of times what they do is, one, they shift all of their weight onto their front leg, okay? And two, they're shifting a lot more forward immediately, okay? So they're using more of, again, we talked about before, the frontal plane, that kind of side to side plane. But when we see this, and his ability to kind of sit into that hip, see that rotation. When you're rotating within the hip, what you're not doing is getting all of your weight up over that front leg. Instead, what you're doing is you're kind of sinking into that front leg, which allows you to have a little bit softer knee as you're releasing. And we can see that as he releases, and after he releases, then he gets those hips all the way through. And that almost is like a part of his deceleration, because as he's coming through, he's utilizing that full spine rotation, right? So see how it's all the way around? Again, and this is him trying to put a lot on it, right? He stopped and he's trying to get the ball all the way across. So what is he doing to generate so much torque? Again, he's rotating a ton in his hips, gets that foot down, right? And as soon as he gets that foot down, a ton of rotation within the hips. And then as soon as his hips start to go, he's got a ton of speed within his spine, his thoracic spine, his mid back. And that allows him to then have that quick wrist and the internal rotation and the strength necessary to be able to generate a lot of force on the throw. Okay, so that's an example there. I'm going to go into, now I'm going to look at my throw for everybody. So now you guys can see, you saw somebody that's one of the best. Now you can see somebody that is definitely not even close to the best, for all the great viewers here. I'm glad we got 4 people. I appreciate the 4 people that are here. I appreciate you. I didn't get it. I was supposed to get an email out. I didn't get the link, and so I couldn't get the email out. So the guys that are here, that's a true commitment to improving within the quarterback mechanics. I love that. I appreciate that. So, what we see here is me. This was last year. I looked at it. It was January 13th. I have improved. It's literally a year ago today. I definitely have improved since this video was shot. But, and again, what we want to be able to see is the areas to improve, right? I know that there's also probably people that are watching this that could potentially have, an athlete that they're working with, or probably have, worse mechanics than this. Okay, so what are some of the good things? I'd say the good thing would be that I am at least getting my front shoulder up, keeping that back shoulder down. I'm definitely pushing down through that back leg, so you can see I'm loading into that back leg. I'm continuing to have pressure through that front foot. Okay, but here when I'm here, I still have an issue of not rotating, right? So from this point, what we should be seeing is we should see like basically my butt, right? Like you should see my glute at this position. Okay, the fact that you don't see my glute is telling you that there's some issues. We're going to go back to Mahomes here and show this angle of Mahomes. I don't think this is going to be a deep ball, but it's still going to be enough to be able to see what we're talking about. Okay, so see how fast he gets those hips around? That would be the goal. So see how you can already see his butt after, so he gets the foot down here, right there, and then immediately we see rotation within the hips. And so that allows him to continue to have the weight going forward towards the target instead of push out this recording. Andrew, what do you mean push out this recording? Like the recording is too far, like the zoom out, I'm too zoomed out. So when I'm here, you can see like first, like I'm landing, right? That front foot's is on the ground, right? My back foot's now coming off the ground. And even as that's happening, I'm really not getting my hips around, right? Even at this position, we can see that you can't really see my whole butt. You could see kind of, like a side profile view, okay? Like the Instagram model side profile view, but you can't see the full, rotation. So what does that mean? That means that as I'm coming through, my momentum is going this way as my arm is going this way. So I'm fighting myself. I'm fighting my own ability to generate force because of how I landed. And the reason I'm showing you this is because I'm showing my own, my mistake, but also this is what I most commonly see with quarterbacks is that the rotation is to the side rather than forward. And I'm just using myself because, I don't want to put anybody else on blast here. I want, if anybody deserves to be on blast, it's the guy that's supposed to be coaching it and have the best mechanics, right? Or at least good mechanics if I'm going to be coaching it. But obviously, this is showing that there's areas to improve for everybody, right? Not that this ends up being a bad throw. I probably threw the ball at least, somewhere in the 55-yard range. And so as I'm releasing here, again, we can see the issue, right? Because my weight was going to the right. So this is going to be that whole thing where, why when I release the ball is my momentum, or why is my spine bending to the side, right? Why do I have a side bend in the spine? How do I correct my side bend? How often do I get that request? Well, the way to be able to correct that is to make it so your momentum is going towards the target. Essentially what it means, what I always tell people is that you're not using your hips, right? You're not using your lower body. There's no way that you're using your lower body correctly if your spine is leaning to the side, because you wouldn't need to do that. So when your spine's leaning to the side, what that's telling you, right? Or, as a coach, the information that the quarterback is telling you is that they're not using their hips. What's the best thing that they can do to start utilizing their hips more effectively is to be able to start rotating within that lower body earlier. Andrew, let me know what you mean here with the, will you push out this recording? Like, will I be sending it to, or like, will this be available later on? Or are you saying like the position of the video is difficult for you guys to be able to see? I'm a little confused there, Coach, with the question. Let me know what you mean. Happy to be able to help you there. But yeah, so and why we end up having to compensate with the spine going to the side, okay, is because our momentum, our hip momentum, is going one way, and the compensation is to lean back the other way, so then we can maintain a straight position. So if you're throwing the ball, right, 50 yards, 55 yards, and your release position is like this, guess what? You have a ton more potential within your throw by just correcting the spine, because now you'll be able to start utilizing the core. What's happening here is there's just not getting full utilization of the core. And again, the reason is because you can't. Right? The movement is lateral. Okay, so we want to be able to, if you could take away one thing here, and I talked about it a few different times, it's utilizing the transverse plane. So in order to utilize the transverse plane, we want to start with creating rotation of the lower body, right? And then we want to finish with coming forward and through with the spine. So we're rotating within the spine, okay? And instead of leaning to the side. Okay, so we can see again here, there's a bit of a, we can see that this is shortening, but it's not really a lean as much as it is a crunch with his front, or with his throwing shoulder to his front hip, right? So it's almost like a crunch. We can see the right shoulder is crunching down towards that left hip as it's coming through. Okay, and that's what helps him in being able to shift all of that weight all the way forward. Okay, and there's a lot of different ways that we could do this. There's not one way to be able to maximize this type of action. So we'll change up the quarterback here. I think, what ends up being the best thing for quarterbacks is to be able to see a wide range of different ways of essentially accomplishing the same thing, right? Everyone's not going to be the same in terms of how we end up generating force, how we end up generating rotation. So we can see here again, this is Hurts, Jalen Hurts. And he's here, he's getting ready to throw. First thing he does, he gets that back foot down, loads through that back foot, gets that front foot down. Notice as soon as that front foot hits the ground, he's immediately rotating with that back hip, a ton of rotation with that back hip. And the big concept we're talking about is we don't need to put a big focus on hip or weight shift forward during the release, but instead we want to really focus on rotation of the hips. So if we see him from here, as he's releasing the ball, we can see that he is not shifting the weight forward a lot as much as he is rotating all the way through. And I think this is a great way to do a few different things. One is I think it's a great way to make it so we could have a consistent release point. That's one of the things that, I was watching the whole thing. I talked about this in the video yesterday. I was watching the series they did with Josh Allen, and he's very big on the release point. Basically talking about where, he could have a bunch of different angles. He could be in a bunch of different positions, but as long as he gets to the same release point, which we talk a lot about the wrist, and the wrist ends up being a big point and a critical point, and being able to make it so we can get to a consistent wrist point or a consistent release point is how well we're able to control the wrist. So I think this helps in making it so it's easier to get to a more consistent release point because we're not having to shift the weight a bunch forward. Okay, so now if somebody's falling on the front foot, if there's things going on within that front leg, right, we don't need to go and necessarily shift all of our weight forward. We just need to get our wrists around and get that release point. All right. And now another big thing that I think it helps doing is eliminates that issue of getting the ball back behind the head. Because if we're getting those hips to open up, all right, I know you can't see my lower body, but what happens is if we're getting the hips to open up, and you can probably even do this, like the more you rotate your hips, so I have my body facing here, I'm going to go and use my desk. I have my desk below me. I'm going to use my desk to get my hips to rotate as far this way as I can, where I'm throwing it. I might be getting mirrored on for you guys. So to you, it might look like I'm going to the left, but I'm going to, or using my left arm here, but I'm using my right arm. Okay, so what happens is as I get as much rotation back here as I can, I'm limited in how much I can get this shoulder back behind. Okay, and that's what we see is we see a lot of people get stuck with the ball way back behind their head this way. But if I rotate with my hips, what that does is that prevents me from being able to get as far back, right? You could feel the stretch all through that core. So what we want to be able to do, right, if we're getting that ball stuck behind that head, we have a really inefficient kind of loading pattern. Okay, we're not able to get good external rotation within the shoulder. Again, what that's telling us is we could do a better job of getting some action going within that lower body. So now we're not getting stuck back behind. So when we see again with Jalen Hurts, he's doing a really good job of getting right into that external rotated position. So he's here, ball's right behind the elbow. So then now he could continue to rotate through, as he's releasing the ball. Yes, Greg, exactly. Great question. Great way to understand it. So we got this question for, I know there's different platforms that watching here, so I don't know if you guys could all see it. So we're going to put it up here. You say that weight shift is more about rotating the hips than using momentum to throw the ball. Absolutely. Right. And momentum is, a way of, it's everyone has their own way to understand things. I've realized that as a coach. So not the vocabulary, the words, the way that we're able to relate to things can be different from one to the other. Momentum to me is almost utilizing a uncontrolled force, right? When I think about momentum, I think about, when I go in and like maybe bounce off of somebody, right? Use that momentum that is, a little bit more out of control, right? And so what we want to be in is obviously the most control as we can. So if momentum works for you, though, that's great in terms of being able to create weight shift, okay? Because we do want to be able to, regardless of this hip rotation, it's not like these guys are finishing. I mean, Patrick Mahomes obviously is getting his back foot off the ground. As some people talk about that, like, should we have the back foot off the ground? Should we have it on the ground? To me, either way, right? Like what works better for you? I don't like to put people in a box. I try to make it so this whole concept is the least amount in the box as possible. And some people think, again, that that's not necessarily the right way to do it. okay? Because, they almost want to have too much control, right? Like we need to have the exact perfect mechanics, right? Ed Milet talks about this in his book. If any of you guys watch Ed Milet, he's a big motivational speaker. And he says that perfection is the lowest level of performance. And I couldn't agree with him more, right? Perfection is the lowest level of performance, which means that there is no perfect way, right? There is not a perfect way to throw the football. But each one of us have a most efficient way, most effective way, are able to find a way that could be the most consistent based off of our levers, based off of our muscle, based off of our range of motion, based off of all the things that come into play, right? Our hands, things like that, that make it so then we could get something that is going to be our best version of a perfect throwing mechanics. But there's no way, if we tried to make it so Jalen Hurts threw like Patrick Mahomes, Jalen Hurts would not be as effective. Jalen Hurts is going to be great utilizing his body to throw the ball the best that he can. So we don't want to put people in a box and say, we have to do it this way. We have to do it, another way. Okay. I mean, even with his leg, right? His leg's pretty straightened out. No, a lot of people say that's bad. You have to have that knee bent. Well, I mean, he generates a lot of force and he generates a lot of rotation. Sometimes guys need to be able to get a little bit straighter within the hips to make it so then they could be locked out and absorb through that hip a little bit better. Right? So there's a lot of different ways to be able to work here. But the point is we're looking into the weight shift. And as he's rotating, he's going from that back leg. Here he's on his back leg. He lands on his front leg, and he's shifting his weight from that back leg onto the front leg. Right? From the back leg onto the front leg. That's the goal. How well are we able to, do that by being rotational athletes instead of lateral athletes, right? We don't want to end up being frontal plane. We don't want to be stuck in frontal plane movement. We want to be utilizing rotational movement. Rotational movement is power. Frontal plane movement is stability. It's balance. So the more effective we could be at rotating here, then the more effective we're going to be at being able to get less pressure onto the throwing arm. All right, we were talking a little bit about that before, where it's like the best pitchers, right? The best pitchers or MLB pitchers. Okay, we call them the best pitchers because if we're going to compare MLB pitchers to minor league pitchers, to college pitchers, the high school pitchers, we would say that on average, the MLB pitchers are the better pitchers. Okay, the best pitchers, the MLB pitchers, on average have less arm speed than college pitchers, than high school pitchers, than youth pitchers. So everyone's talking about how we need to have more a better pitch count on all these kids, right? In youth baseball and high school baseball. I don't necessarily disagree, but it sounds like to me if the youth baseball kids have less arm speed, I was right. More arm speed than MLB pitchers. It sounds like there's also a mechanic issue going on there, where what we're trying to optimize is not arm speed. I think it ends up being a lot more arm position, right? Wrist position, the ability to get our wrist into a consistent position. So it's more about that and generating speed within the hips, generating speed within the spine in order to maximize throwing power. Again, it's not about arm speed, right? And I mean, these guys' arms aren't moving slow, right? We don't want to be slow with our arms. We want to be able to time it up. But what they're doing is they're being efficient. They're being effective, right? There's not a lot of wasted motion. And then they're getting to the position where their hand is on top, okay? And they're flicking the wrist down during the release. And I would say the most quarterbacks that send in video to me, the two biggest things would be lower body, being able to control the weight shift. So many guys immediately when they get that front foot down, allow all their weight to shift into the front leg. I don't know, based off the comments, it seems like we have a good amount of coaches, type guys on here. You guys can let me know if you guys more coaches, more quarterbacks, so then I can kind of, tailor the information. I mean, the information be similar either way. And if you have any specific issues, we'll be happy to be able to address them. But again, the two biggest things is the weight shift ends up being, from the back leg to the front leg, or being able to maintain the weight onto the back leg, being able to effectively control the weight shift to the front, and then the position of the wrist, just being either too inconsistent or just because the position is just so far away from what it needs to be and what it wants to be. Okay. And again, I try not to be in a box, but at the same time, like, we have to make some degree of a line. Like, we need to be here. We need to be somewhere within that general range. Okay. We can't have our pinky turned out, so the nose of football ends up going to the side. We see that all the time. Again, with guys that are throwing the ball. And that's what guys that end up having the ball kind of tailing to the right a little bit more. Okay, we can see how his elbow and wrists are like right on top of each other. Yeah, I know he throws from a lot of different positions, but when he needs to be able to put the most amount of force on it, he gets into this position, right, where that wrist is all the way around. Okay, we don't want the pinky to be really high up and the thumb really far down. That's going to make it so that ball tail or sails on us. Okay, and then the two common things are sailing, right, or the ball is going to the right, or you're off to the right. If you're off to the right, it's because we're not getting the wrist around fast enough. We're slow with the wrist getting around. And a lot of times that has to do with like getting the ball way too far back behind, or just not having the connection with the wrist. Right? I really sync up because, again, I do a lot of stuff with the sprinters too. I'm sure some of you guys have seen some of that on the YouTube page and maybe on the Performance Lab page as well. But with sprinters, it's a lot about the ankle and the foot, right? Use your ankle, use your foot. I'm telling those guys all the time. With quarterbacks, it's the wrist. Right? Use your wrist, use your hand and your wrist and your fingers to help throw the ball. And that's where the grip's important. You got to know how to grip the ball, and we have videos about gripping the ball. I'm not going to go a ton into that right now, but we want to be able to set some degree of a line, and where we want to be is we want to get the wrist here, so then we can get that type of an action. Right? I know some people like to do this, right? I haven't seen anyone play high-level football that's doing this as they're releasing. All of them are going here, right? And afterwards, so they get the arm to come down, and then are coming across from there. So their thumb ends up being down. Nobody that I see that ends up throwing with their thumb up. Everybody goes and gets the thumb down, because that's how the shoulder works. Okay, when it comes to effective shoulder utilization, it's downwards, it's internal rotation, it's external rotation. Again, we're talking about the transversal plane again, rotational plane, right? It's external rotation to internal rotation. Okay, yes, there is some horizontal adduction. That would be this, is horizontal adduction, right? There is some horizontal adduction, but it's not a reliance on horizontal adduction. It's a it would be part of a I don't know the best way to put it, like a sub movement, right? A supportive movement. Okay, that's what the again, that frontal plane is, right? The horizontal plane is. It's a stabilizer. It's an assister. It's not a prime mover. The muscles that move within that frontal plane move as again, like assisting type movements, or muscles, or stabilizing type muscles, right? The glute med those are muscles that are being utilized for stability. Okay, those aren't muscles that should be primary force producers. Rotational muscles and sagittal plane, okay, moving forward and back, those muscles are primary force producers. When it comes to this, the pec is undoubtedly involved, right? Pec major, pec minor, okay? But we also have a ton of internal rotation within the, and obviously the pec's involved with internal rotation and the throw, but we also have muscles within the rotator cuff, right? And we also have muscles within the deltoids that are going to be critical parts of the throw, and we want to be able to utilize those effectively. And we're just not going to be able to do that if we're working within the horizontal plane, utilizing just horizontal adduction. Horizontal adduction is just the pec. Okay, the pec does more than horizontal adduction, though. The pec does internal rotation as well. But if we're reliant on horizontal adduction, again, we're not utilizing the pec to its full ability. We're not utilizing it as a prime mover as much as we are a stabilizer. So, I know we're getting a little bit more sciencey into there. And I don't necessarily want to get too deep into all that. I mean, I'd be happy to answer any questions if you guys want to get into the particulars of that. But, really, we wanted to talk about the efficiency of the movement pattern. And the way to be able to do that is optimizing the hip rotation. So, yeah, that was the main point that I wanted to make today. Okay, I appreciate you guys for hopping on. Right, and we got a couple of comments here. Again, if you guys like the information, you guys can leave a like, a comment, send me a message if you guys have any questions. Subscribe to the channel if you guys are on YouTube. Send this out to people, right? Let this information, again, we have different videos. That recent video that I just did on YouTube, it should be on Facebook as well, goes in depth into this concept. So, you can send them the live, you can send them, that video too. Either one of them could be effective in helping somebody with better understanding that lower body. And, if you guys want to get more in depth, I mean, that we have a ton of different options for you in terms of throw breakdowns, in terms of Quarterback University, in terms of the, Pro 60 program, the quarterback program, all that's in the description down below or above, depending on what platform you are on. And then, put this in your calendars, guys. 12 o'clock Fridays, I'm going to be going live. 12 o'clock Pacific Standard Time. I'm going to be going live. I'm going to start sending over the emails. If you're not on the email, last video shared on Facebook, exactly, for get more in depth into this. But yeah, if you guys aren't on our email list, we have and it should be in the description down below. There's a how to throw the football video series. Really, there's a lot of information on that goes in depth into our ability to get into the nitty gritty of each part of the throw. Right, it's a 7-step series going into each part of the throw. How to grip the ball, right? How to load. One of them is the most important thing, which goes into the wrist, the weight shift, the follow through, right? How to be able to use the hips, all that, right? It's a 7-step video series. Each one of the videos are like 2 to 5 minutes long, I want to say, maybe 90 seconds, 5 minutes long. So it's not a lot. It's a free video series, but it'll get you on the email list. So then when we're going live, you'll be able to get those notifications. I think it's a great option for you guys. Again, it's a free option and it gives a lot of great content when it comes to, things like this and being able to more effectively throw the football, right? Just learn more concepts, get deeper into it, the more understanding of it. And I tell guys this too, all the time, where it's like, write out what you want to be doing, right? Write out as much of the throw as you can. And I think this helps in 2 ways. One, it helps the quarterback in being able to better understand what is it that they're, trying to do within the throw. Okay, from the load, the first action with the load, right? What are you doing with the hands? What are you doing with the steps? What are you doing with the hips? How are you going to throw the ball, right? Go through as much information as you can as how you're throwing the ball, right? Write out as in detailed as you can. Okay, that helps the quarterback be able to connect to it, right? That makes it so now you can feel out the movements, the specific parts of the throw. Okay, and then from my perspective, I love it because now I can see where they don't understand. Okay, a lot of times when they go through that exercise of trying to write it out, okay, they'll go and immediately ask you, what is it that, how am I supposed to do that? Like, what am I supposed to do here? Okay, or you could also see or understand a little bit more about how little you understand about the throw and how little you understand about the process. Okay, and then we got to start seeking answers to be able to fill those gaps. But the more information we have about the throw, the more knowledge we have on the throw, then the better we're going to be able to make corrections and adjustments and improvements. But if we don't have very much knowledge on the specifics, okay, the weight shift, the wrist, the grip, right? The follow through. If we don't have specifics on that, then the potential for error is a lot greater. Okay, just like with accuracy, we talk about this with accuracy. The smaller the point can be, right? When we're aiming, we want to make it so that it's the smallest point. When they shoot darts, they try to make it so the point that they're aiming to is the smallest possible point that they can. So then, if they miss, it's a little bit off. But if you aim at the whole target, right, the whole dartboard, now if you miss, it could be, a lot greater. And also the potential for accuracy is a lot smaller, right? It's harder to be accurate when you're aiming bigger. Okay. The more specific we can get, okay, goals, more specific we can get. Okay. There's a reason we talk about that as well with goals. Okay, but the more specific we can get with with the throw, with the understanding of what we need to do within the mechanics, the better off we're going to be. Okay. Again, guys, thanks for watching. Thanks for taking the time. I really, really appreciate it. If you like the information, thumbs up, like, all that type of good stuff. Share it with some people. And yeah, we'll talk to you soon. And if you want to learn a little bit more about what we do, we have the links down below. I think the throw program is obviously the best way to be able to get the most results and the most consistent results for your throwing mechanics, your throwing distance, really get into the nitty gritty of throwing performance in general. So again, thanks for watching. We'll be here next Friday. We'll be going live next Friday. I'm probably going to be going live this weekend as well. We're supposed to be getting some rain here. And so I have a bunch of people that ended up moving their sessions from, tomorrow to Sunday. So I'll probably be going live sometime tomorrow. It's going to be about sprinting though tomorrow. I've been going deep into that. So I'm looking forward to that. If you guys want to check that out. Also could check out the How to Run Faster or Performance Lab page too, if you're on Facebook, to be able to get those notifications, because I know a lot of you guys only have the notifications for quarterback mechanics. So check those out if you want to get a little bit more in depth into the how to run faster or more speed mechanic type stuff. Again, thanks for watching. Have a great rest of the day. We'll see you tomorrow, or if not tomorrow, we'll see you next week.